over the world, and we've done a series already. This is probably the 37th country we are speaking about. We are going to speak about today, friend, Congo, the Jewish community history of that country. We've spoken about already here inside this series about possibly a good 35 countries. We've spoken about very unique countries, which one might have thought didn't have such, let's say, large Jewish communities of itself. We spoke about places like we're speaking about Congo today. We've spoken about Pakistan, Afghanistan, the Jewish communities. Afghanistan actually had a very large one. We spoke about Bahrain, Kuwait, Sudan, various different places, even Somalia we've spoken about. So we spoke about Bolivia. So I thought we'll speak about over here today, Congo, the Jewish country. That ties obviously with Belgium, as we're going to speak about as this video progresses over here on this special edition. I'm actually recording this here from the capital city of Israel, from Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, right outside the medical center over here, a very, very large one. We've recorded numerous videos before, so I thought it would be an opportune time to actually speak about this country, where we're going to explore a bit about every country, even the tiny countries we've spoken about so far, which had tiny Jewish communities. There was always one or two key rabbis that will make their mark over there in history, and that will also be the case we're going to learn about Congo also, which is something that I will definitely point out over here today. Now, anyone tuning in live, welcome to our community over here. And let me just point out from the outset, we are doing at the moment not just videos here exploring about the history of the various different Jewish communities across the world. We're trying to make ourselves like an online encyclopedia where we are exploring the rabbinic history. Who are the great rabbis in Oriental places, like in the Ottoman countries especially, and in those territories. And we've already covered at the moment a staggering 1,400 rabbis already inside this beautiful series that we're doing. We speak mostly about the, let's say, more Oriental rabbis of yesteryear from North African places, Ottoman countries also we will speak about. And we try and get a nice breadth of what actually went on in all those different vicinities over there. That's also one thing we do here on this channel, is that we do tours all over Israel. Like today, I'm recording this here from an area called Bet Kerem in Jerusalem. We recorded videos over here. You check out today, already begun. We did some tours all around those different vicinities. And just recording this quite near the Yafe Nof area here in Jerusalem. As you can see, just the views behind me, as we are going to bring Jerusalem and connect it to Congo today, and explore some of the main facts that might have happened during that time period, friends. So enjoy. Anyone, first of all, has been to Congo or has any connection also there, please let me know. And it'll be very, very interesting to hear more information about that over here, friends. Over here. And so we're just going to start the video now. And I took a lot of notes down. Also, something that I have to point over. And the Republic of Congo, you could also say it'd be called. So you can see the history of the Jews of the Democratic Republic of Congo. That's what we're concentrating on today, friends. Now, I think the Jewish history traces itself back about 118 years, all the way back to the year 1907. It has to be reported over. We're talking about 118 years ago. And you say immigrants began to arrive in the country. And I think the current Jewish Congolese population is virtually everyone is Sephardic. I believe it's reported over. So that's very interesting. We are really trying to explore the Sephardic history in this channel. So one of the main things that we're doing on, and certainly had a very rich Sephardic. I think the territory which is now the Democratic Republic of Congo was first annexed and colonized by the Europeans after 1885 within what was then the Congo Free State. That was. And I think in 1908 the Free State was annexed by Belgium. So there's going to be connections with Belgium and Congo, as we're going to learn about today. That will then become Belgian Congo, which is very, very interesting to point out. So we haven't recorded a video about the history of the Belgian Jewish community. That's something I will point out over here on the onset. Now, I think the first Jews in the Congo and Eastern European immigrants were from areas like Romania and Poland. Now, we did record a video about Romania not so long ago, if you recollect. And you look at the channel of the history of the country. I've spoken about various rabbis. They'll make their ways in Romania. Within the next years, more Jewish immigrants arrived from South Africa, reported over. In 1911, Sephardi Jews came from the island of Rhodes in what is now known as Greece. Now, we did a video on the history of the rabbinic seminary in Rhodes also. It was obviously then part of the Ottoman Empire, and they would settle in the Congo. I think that same specific year, if I'm not mistaken, a Jewish community center was established. I think named the Comunità du Congo Belge du Runda Urandi, if I'm not mistaken, to give it its full title. And a synagogue was built in Lubumbashi. I think this was in the year 1930, so there'll be synagogue heritage also inside the country. The key rabbi over there that we're going to speak about is someone named Rabbi Moses Levi. So there are many rabbis had this specific name, I think, all throughout Jewish history. That's something I will just point out over here. He acted as the Jewish community leader throughout the Congo and the Rwanda Urandi, present-day Rwanda, and Burundi. Due to, I think there was economic crisis at that point in time, during the 1930s, most of the Eastern European Jews left Congo. However, I think it was after, if I'm not mistaken, the crisis had passed, more Jewish immigrants, let's just say, from Eastern Europe, and were joined by Southern Europe, European Jews itself, respectively. So very, very interesting. Anyone tuning in live at the moment, we are exploring the history of the Congo Jewish community at the moment, as we are in Jerusalem. Yerushalayim Shel Zahab. We'll give you some scenes. We're going to take a short 1-minute break. See some scenes of the area we happen to be in at the moment, as we're bringing Congo and Jerusalem together in this special series. And this is not the first historic video we are recording today about a specific country in of its own right. So very, very interesting, friends, over here, as our community grows from strength to strength and so on. So I'm just going to take a short 1/2-minute break, and we're going to continue the video, friends, over here. Sorry about that, we're just exploring the Jewish history of Congo over here, country in Africa. Sorry about the sun at the moment, sorry about the short break that there was over here, but let's continue over here. We talked about the ties that Congo would have with Belgium, naturally, in especially 1900s, and how Jewish communities would start in 1930. I think prior to the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, I think it was the Congo was home to numerous Zionistic organizations led by the Association Sioniste du Congo Belge. I think after the independence of Congo from Belgium in 1960, the majority of Congolese Jews left the country, with most of them would settle in either Israel or South Africa. Now, at the time of independence, Congo was home to a very modest 2,500 Jewish people. 50% of the Jewish population lived, I believe, in Lubumbashi, I believe. And while I think there was as many as 70 Jewish families, if I'm not mistaken, lived in Congo's capital. I think it was called Kinshasa. I think it was Jewish children, for example, at the time were taught lessons in Hebrew, we have to point out, and Judaism was taught in public schools, which is also another very interesting tidbit just to put over within regards to that. Okay. And so obviously because of flourishing Zionism, I think come with 2013, much more recently, the Jewish population was as many as 320 and was settled mostly in Lububasni. I think most obviously are Sephardic, Ladino speaking, which obviously Ladino is a Spanish Jewish language. There is a synagogue reported over as of 2013 in the Banshee, and that is served by a rabbi. There is also a small Jewish community living in Kinshasa, I believe, over, and I think that is known as Congregation Israelite. I think Chabad Lubavitch also has operations inside that country. We have to report over, and their Central African headquarters is in Kinshasa. So Chabad has a synagogue and a Hebrew school, and groups of their rabbinical students come to study for a year over there, while also being sent to other places, I think in the sub-Saharan Africa, to provide Jewish communities with programs, which are very interesting tidbits. Anyone tuning in live at the moment, we're exploring the Jewish history of Congo over here on this special edition, and I don't know if there's many videos in English language that will actually experiment, or let's just say explore, within regards to have actually spoken about Congo in of itself, but we are definitely trying to attempt it. Now, who was one of the famous rabbis of Congo at this time was a rabbi named Rabbi Moise Levy, who we've mentioned about, I believe, on various occasions before, maybe inside this series. Who was Rabbi Moise Levy? We've come across his name before. He lived between August 12, 1915 to September 29, 2003. He was a Sephardic Jewish rabbi, obviously, who led the Jewish community in the modern day Democratic Republic of Congo for a staggering 53 years. Now, Rabbi Moise Levy was born in 1915 in Antalya, which was then part of the Ottoman Empire. He grew up on the island of Rhodes, which is at the time under Italian control, I think modern day Greece. There he began, I think, his rabbinical studies. Remember, we spoke about the rabbinical seminary in Greece, in Rhodes, at one stage, I think about 6 months ago, if I'm not mistaken. So that's very, very interesting. I mean, Rabbi Moise Levy will really make his mark over there as one of the most famous rabbis in Greece. Yes, so just to add more information with regards to him, at 22 he would be ordained as a rabbi. He would leave Rhodes for the Belgian Congo, which is modern-day Democratic Republic of Congo. But I think at the time there was a small Jewish community, which composed obviously mostly of Sephardic Jews, as we mentioned about before, from Rhodes. A lot of them, so there were a lot of people from Rhodes would actually come there, respectively. They had settled, I think, in an area called Elizabethville, which is modern-day Lubumbashi, if I'm not mistaken, I pronounce it right, which is very interesting. He became the first rabbi in the Congo in 1937, and come on 1953, he was named chief rabbi of the Belgian Congo, Rwanda, Urandi, and the northern Rhodesia, I think, respectively, over there. He would organize tefillot prayers, rites of passage, and maintain Jewish life in the area. I think in the event, let's say, a dispute would come and arise between members of the community, he would also serve as a mediator. And I think various different judgments of his were accepted as final, thus that would avoid, obviously, having to involve the colonial administration at that point in time. That's something that we have to point out within regards to him. We can also say more with regards to him. I think the rabbi will build a sphere of influence far outside his community in southern Congo, for example. I think during the colonial period, provincial governors regularly consulted him. He had auditions, I think, with King Leopold III and King Baudouin, if I'm not mistaken, Baudouin. When the colony, the state of Katanga, remembered the rabbi for ruling apparently in his favor during a dispute in his youth, and entrusted someone named Levy with the diplomatic missions of France, the United States, and Israel. Following the rise of the Mobutu Sese Seko, it happened to have him, and the creation of Zera in 1965. Now, Mr. Levy continued to have Rabbi Moses Levy had good relations with local authorities, and was named to the National Order of the Leopard, respectively. Now, following the collapse of Zera, I think it was, the first Congo War, I think that was in 1991, Rabbi Levy decided to leave the country for Belgium, where he retired and passed away 22 years ago in the year 2003, which is very interesting. And it could be that we did record a video at the time period of his Hilula, but I have to double check on that. maybe at a later stage in time we're going to speak about that, friends. Anyone tuning in live, please subscribe to the channel. We're exploring the Jewish history of Congo on this special edition, just recording here this from Jerusalem, the capital of Israel. Just let you to see some scenes from it as we're going to progress this video. We're actually very near central Jerusalem at the moment. As we continue this, okay, let's talk about the Jewish community at present. Okay, I think it's important to speak about it. I think it was Congo Free State back in the year 1877 to 1908. It was Belgian Congo, was known as 1908 to 1960. It was the Republic of Congo, or Leopoldville, between 1960 to 64. The Democratic Republic of Congo was present from 1997, also between 65 to 71. And the Republic of Zaire between 1971 to 1997, which is very interesting. They say that, obviously, we talked about 320 Jewish people lived in Congo at that point in time in the year 2013, which is quite recently. There's someone named Moise Katumbi. I mean, he is known as one of Congo's most powerful and, let's say, popular men, and a potential presidential candidate. He's the son of a Sephardi man who had arrived in Congo from the island of Rhodes. So that's very interesting tidbit to speak about. Obviously, we talk about how in 1907 that most Ashkenazim Jews would arrive from South Africa and Romania and Poland, and eventually Sephardim in 1911. And yeah, very, very interesting. We talked about how there was a community centre, I think, also established by the Jewish community in the year 1911. I think in the Communauté du Congo Belge Edu we spoke about before, and the synagogue that was made over there. So the association of the Zionistic activities would take place there. Also, that's something also important to bring out. So over here, so that's very, very interesting. A lot can be found on the internet. There's actually a very good article which talks about Elizabethville and let's just say the history of Rhodes and the Jewish community over here, which I want to just share for just 1 minute over here as we're just recording this video. There's an article, I think it says Elizabeth, the Congo November. It's in September 1961. United Nations and the Kigali's troops were locked in a battle for control of the city. The firing enveloped and the Congo's only synagogue. It was the fiercest fighting, let's just say, according to this article, would take place in the center of Elizabethville, in capital of Secessions, and someone named Katanga province, where the day's United Nations and Cantagese soldiers battled for the area around the post office. They fought the synagogue, a tall and stately red brick edifice with white columns, was caught in the crossfire, unfortunately. When Yom Kippur dawned, most members of the Elizabethville's long-established Jewish community were huddled in civilian refugee centres. It was considered too dangerous to attend services. You can see a lot of anti-Semitism there. In Elizabethville, Jews and non-Jews alike, the story is still told of how great Rabbi Moise Levy, who we spoke about just a minute ago, and non-Jews alike, the clad in his, let's say, ceremonial robes, marched into the zone of fire and turned first to United Nations lines and then to the Cantagese positions. Suddenly, as if by signal, the firing ceased and Rabbi Levy made his way across the street and into the synagogue. There he remained for, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, for the rest of that specific period in of itself. Rabbi Moise Levy, one of the great rabbis of Sephardi rabbis in recent times, seemingly. And they remained there the rest of the day. They prayed on behalf of the congregation, while outside the battle raged on. And I think at that stage in time, that would hit the building, let's just say, several blocks, if I'm not mistaken. So his synagogue was there. I think today only 500 Elizabethville's Jews remain. I don't know if this is still the case. I'm not sure when this article was written. Also, 1,250 that lived there, let's say, before September 1961. So this could have been written many, many years ago, since this battle. Many have emigrated to Israel. This is what they say here. Most came from Rhodes. All but 5% of Elizabethville Jews, including Rabbi Moise Levy, originally came from the island of Rhodes, which we've spoken about before. Most of them immigrated to Congo after the turn of the century, and they came not because of persecution, because in hope of making a better living. They came, let's say, The first to come was Musa Solomon, key name of Congo, who in 1909 set up a general store 13 miles away from there. Others like the Benatars, the Amatos, and the El Hadefs soon followed. Their names are now associated with some of the Kataga's foremost business, let's say, concerns in of itself. The largest Sol Bena is owned by the Benatars. This is from many years ago, this article. And they would employ at that point in time of the article 1,200 workers in the manufacture of shirts and gloves. And from Moise Levy, who came to Katanga, I think in 1937, was the spiritual head of Congo, Rwanda, and Burundi. And they state at the time, this article is from many years ago, but it says, nowadays, at the time of this article, the rabbi's biggest problem is raising money for repairs in the synagogue. Every window was broken and the roof shattered by mortar shells. So I think this might have been even written more than 50, 60 years ago, this article. So, because obviously he passed away 20 years ago. Let's just say every window was broken and the roof shattered by mortar shells. So far, we have spent 270,000 francs, he says at the time, $5,400. Yes, this article probably written about 60 plus years ago. It's especially hard to raise the amounts with the Jewish community as a reduced in a much less community. And Rabbi Levy would praise the spirit of toleration over there. And it says that there has never been a pogrom here or anywhere else. This was reported over at that time. Let's see, the Sephardic Jewish community of Brussels had a long storied history, let's just say. Before this article was written 6 years ago, especially before the First World War, and prior to official recognition, a number of Sephardic Jewish families immigrated from the former Ottoman Empire to Brussels, apparently. So they remember Belgium and Congo, become Belgian Congo, establishing a small but vibrant Jewish community at the turn of the 20th century. Let's just say initially it was tiny, the community began to flourish and expand rapidly during the Great Depression, but due to, let's say, there was a major influx of Jews from Turkey, Greece, from Slovakia, from Istanbul, and from Izmir. I think come up the late 1950s, early 1960s, the Jewish community became dominant Sephardic from the island of Rhodes, who had originally immigrated to Belgian Congo, South Rhodes, let's just say in South, today Zimbabwe, very interesting, and South Africa at the beginning of the 20th century, for business opportunities in the rubber trade. It happened to have been established sizable communities over there at that point in time, with the colonization of Central Africa and Belgium's direct colonial ties to Congo and use of the French language. Many of these Sephardim ended up coming to Brussels at the end. And this would help revive the community after the Holocaust in Belgium. Nearly 25,000 Jews in the country, unfortunately, were horrifically deported by Nazis to Auschwitz during the war. And yeah, very, very interesting. So we're talking about here Belgian Congo. Yeah, they say that in 2007, the community inaugurated a new synagogue named the Simon and I think Lena Haim synagogue in the Jewish neighborhood of Ukla, moving closer to the members. Today, the largest Jewish congregation in Brussels. Remember, this was written a while ago. This was with more than 350 members, more than half of them of which were Turkish and Roti heritage, which had introduced at the time new cultural programs, engaging the community, wider Belgian society, including the Ladino courses they were doing in Belgium. This was very much connected to the Congo community. And the president at the time was Miko Cohen, and the community was very active, especially in Shabbat services, culture programs, youth activities, and the rabbi itself. So very, very interesting. We're exploring over here the history of the Congo Jewish community. We've got a special edition over here, just exploring about what actually went on in those times. And you know, it's very, very interesting. I think the World Jewish Congress website itself say that most Jews in Leposhami live in that place in the current day, but there's a small community, once again stressing what we said before, in Kinshasa. I think Jews lived in today what the Congo was since the beginning of the century, with the first immigrants arrived from Eastern Europe, as I mentioned before, and South Africa. They were later joined by Sephardim that were from the island of Rhodes. With the departure, let's say, of Belgium in the 1960s, many of the Jews left, respectively. I think many Israelis, if I'm not mistaken, are working on development projects Congo at present, so that's very, very interesting and very, very welcome. So that's something that we can point out. I think with regards to the topic of religious and cultural life, the community Israelis Shuba represents the Jews of Congo. I think there's a synagogue, as mentioned, one in Bernshi, which is overseen by a rabbi. I'm not sure who the rabbi is at the moment. If anyone knows more information, please write a comment of it. Kosher food. I think there's a kosher database out there which will state over if there's a kosher food available there. And with regards to the topic of relations with Israel, I think Congo was one of the first African countries to re-establish diplomatic relations with Israel in 1983, following the severing of relations by African states in 1973. Reported over, which is very, very interesting. I think there's an embassy over there also in Congo, which we also have to point out. And I think there's a lot reported over articles with regards to what actually happened in 1960. I think journals, I think UCL, University College of London, which actually talk about the Jewish community of Rhodes when they would start settling the Belgian Congo. I think that was, they state over, it was in the 1910s, just going back to it, from the early 1960s, between 1,000 to 1,500 Jewish people lived there. Similarly, about 800 to 1,000 Rhodes lived in southern Rhodesia, today known as Zimbabwe. This article states over. These numbers are obviously significant in the context of communities' demographics, if I'm not mistaken. Rhodesia remained in Congo until, I think, the end of the Belgian rule, and in Rhodesia until the 1960s, early 70s. In some cases, even later, let's just say, when most would resettle in South Africa, Belgium, United States, Israel, or Italy. Very interesting enough. So, for many Jews from Rhodes, Belgian Congo, and southern Rhodesia symbolized as a Tierra Prometea, Judeo-Spanish of the Promised Land, as a Rhodesi song, I think, was written in the interwars. Very interesting enough. That's something that we point over as a tidbit of it. For many Jews from Rhodes, yes, it was this, let's say, a special place. It was seen as by many. This new location was, and they would write songs about it. Well, they improved their socio-economic status. Well, after, I think, the Holocaust, if I'm not mistaken, reconstructed the shattered community. Moreover, even though their story may seem unusual, it sheds light to important dynamics of migration, national belonging, and Jewishness that, let's say, connect the Mediterranean to Central and South Africa. And it's a very, very good, detailed article given by someone from the University College of London. In one of the journals that's actually come in the UCL press, to recommend everyone to read. It's many, many pages of information, if I'm not mistaken. And it talks about, I think, during what happened between the time period of the Second World War, especially in September 1944, just a month after deportation, there was meetings of Father Keeper congregation in Salisbury reported that following communication, I think, with the Congo congregation, it was notified that our people at Rhodes had been deported by the Germans. Cables had been set out from Egypt for confirmation, but replies received so far indicated grounds of truths to these reports. It's a whole detailed article, originally encompassing the horrors that actually occurred, unfortunately, at that moment in time. Yeah, so very, very detailed article. They say that in 1945, just had, I think, at the time period when the Second World War was finishing, the Sephardi Hebrew congregation of Salisbury continued to show solidarity with the motherland and prayed for those fortunate enough to survive the persecution of the Nazi monsters who were still, I think, standing and waiting to be reunited to Rhodes. Few of the survivors were resettled in an area called Dodo, Kansas. However, I think, on the contrary, about 70, almost a half of the less than the 200 Rhodes Holocaust survivors migrated to Belgian Congo. Also, was very, very interesting. But it's a very detailed article, I must point out over here, which I found on the internet. And friends, just a special treat, you'll see some of the scenes over here of Jerusalem. I'm going to show all of you. And we explored the Jewish history of Congo. So please subscribe to the channel and enjoy for 2-3 minutes of scenes, and we'll call it a day. Happens to be Jerusalem, going all the way to Bet Shemesh, some of the views. Anyone tuning in live, welcome to our community, and please subscribe to the channel. It's just leaving you all with a special treat, some scenes of Yerushalayim. as we leave the beautiful city, the capital of Israel. And this, friends, is a real promised land, Israel is. Yes, so friends, thanks everyone for watching live. Special edition it was, where we explored the history of the Congo. I showed you a glimpse of the scenes here in Jerusalem, just here on the drive. I wish you all a fantastic day. Thank you for watching. And please don't forget, if you watch this live still here, please join the channel and subscribe also. So thank you very much, and a great day.